right now.
Hello, everyone. Weeks at 5 p.m. Mountain Time with a variety of different content. And so thank you to everyone who's been participating as either, is either someone who's coming to learn or someone who's coming to present or both. We're very excited today to have the president of the National Federation of the Blind, Mr. Mark Riccobono, to talk with us about what it means to live the lives we want. He wrote a fantastic article in the March Braille Monitor. It was published about what it means to live the life we want, which was really wonderful. And I know he's going to talk more about that. And we're just very thrilled to have him with us tonight. But we're also going to have lots of exciting content coming up next week. We haven't put out our schedule yet, but we're going to be making an appetizer together and sharing our favorite drink recipes. We're going to have a call about using guide dogs, where we'll have different guide dog programs, as well as guide dog users who are going to talk with us about that process. We'll be having a tech day and a workout and all kinds of, we're going to talk about games. So we're going to talk about games that you can play both on your iPhone and accessible board games. So we're going to talk all about those things next week. So you won't want to miss those calls. We'll be posting the schedules both with our communications team, which is what folks are encouraged to do. If you're offering Zoom content, we can email that to communicationsteam@nfb.org. And I want to welcome everybody. If you're not familiar with the National Federation of the Blind of Colorado and you'd like more information or you'd like to become a member of our wonderful organization, please reach out to us. And I am going to switch over to Maureen. Do you have any remarks before we turn it over to Scott?
And can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Well, I think Jess did a great job at welcoming everybody. And I would just say that I really enjoyed getting to be a part of putting all of these calls together each evening. And thank you to everyone who is on tonight and has been getting on these calls. I'm excited to keep, doing them and being a active participant in the National Federation of the Blind of Colorado. So thank you, everybody.
Kevin Worley.
Yep.
I want to, before I think Scott will want to talk a bit, but I just wanted to remind folks to spread the word, particularly if you're in Colorado. If you're dealing with challenges around blindness and the COVID-19, we have an email. You can reach out to us at assistance@nfbco.org. That's pretty simple, assistance@nfbco. So if you know a blind person who's having some issues getting to a medical appointment, groceries, just need someone to talk to, encourage, and it doesn't really matter. Just call us at assistance@nfbco.org or 303-778-1130, extension 219. And our latest blog, The Blind Coloradan, will be out Tuesday. Thank you.
So I might as well jump in. I'm Scott LeVar, president of the NFB of Colorado. And before I introduce Mark, I want to tell you in advance for our happy hour call when we do it, I'm going to already disclose my drink recipes. They're really easy: gin and tonic, and scotch and rocks. So there you go. Those are my complicated drink recipes for you. Anyway, it gives me great pleasure, and it truly is a privilege to have our national president on our call this evening. Mark Riccobono has been our president since 2014, and I can't believe it's already been that long. It seems like that was just a day or two ago. To say he is an outstanding leader of our organization would be an understatement. He has brought creativity, compassion, and excellence to his leadership and to the Federation. And quite frankly, I could not think of a more qualified, more sincere, better human being to be leading us through this terrible pandemic than Mark Riccobono. He reacted quickly to it. He made sure that although we had to stop meeting as a physical family, he made sure that we didn't forget that we are a family and that we had to stay in touch and we had to keep building the National Federation of the Blind. So with great pleasure, here is Mark Riccobono.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate the introduction, and it's, it's a little odd to think about being introduced in that way as a leader during a time of pandemic. It's strange to think about. So it is a pleasure to be with you all this evening, and I'm really hoping that it's not going to be as much my talking as you all talking. But I do want to first commend the NFB of Colorado for the great work and leadership that you all are putting forward in making sure that not just Federationists in Colorado, but all across the nation have a rich array of content, from the simple gin and tonic all the way up to the more complicated activities. I think it's really great, and I think you're setting a tremendous example for federationists all over the country. I'll try to get our colleagues in Maryland to step up to the bar of programming, and maybe other bars too, but to try to use the diversity within our federation to continue to keep blind people connected, and to connect and to protect the rights of blind people at this important time. But we're not here to talk about civil rights exactly this evening. We're here to talk about living the life you want, which I think is a fun topic, especially because I was, as some of the other folks on this call, were intimately involved in the process that led to this being our new tagline, which we launched at our convention in 2014, coincidentally. So as Jessica pointed out, we have had a number of articles in the March issue of the Braille Monitor about Live the Life You Want, somewhat stimulated by discussions in our Colorado affiliate about what Live the Life You Want means. So I've written about this extensively, so I don't want to just rehash what's in the article, but just to make a few comments. First of all, Live the Life You Want is the tagline currently of our organization. And the article details that it was developed through a somewhat complicated process of bringing federationists together. And it actually became one of the more difficult components of developing the Federation brand. Now, we had a brand before, but we decided we needed to evaluate our brand and see whether the image we were putting forward as a movement was really expressing what it was, where we wanted to go, who we wanted to be. And a brand is really the reputation that you want to have. And our brand in the National Federation of the Blind has changed over the decades. This is our 80th year. And, you know, when we started as an organization, we were the rebels. We were very much on the outside, knocking on the door, trying to get in, trying to even get someone to open the door. Blind people did not have nearly the influence that we have today. In fact, I would venture to say our founders, even as imaginative as they were, I think would have had a difficult time envisioning really where our movement is today, 80 years later. And in considering a tagline and a brand for today, a tagline is particularly difficult because it has to represent the diversity of members that we have, and we do have a range of individuals who, besides having the common characteristic of being blind people, are as diverse as any group can be in so many ways. And the tagline also has the challenge of appealing to the current members, but also letting blind people who aren't members know that we need them to be members. We want them to be members. It has to appeal to the folks who are already in the family, but also the folks that have not yet discovered us. And live the life you want as a tagline has to meet the challenge of the unique mission that we have in the National Federation of the Blind. There are something like 500 private agencies for the blind in this nation. We're not them, and they're not us. We do things that nobody else does. We operate in a way that nobody else does because we are an organization that is built on the hopes and dreams of blind people. We're run by blind people. We're governed at all levels by blind people. It's at our core. You can't change it. And that means for our tagline, it has to represent the individual, but it also has to represent individual efforts collectively focused, because that is our mission and that's what we've done since 1940. It's embedded in Article 2 of our Constitution, the purpose of what we do. So in some ways, the academic question of what does it mean to live the life you want is both an organizational question. Where do we want to be? Where do we want to be as blind people? Where do we want to get to? Where are we trying to go as a movement? But of course, it means something very personal to us as individuals. That's really why we come to be part of this movement and find hope and opportunity in the Federation family. Well, so what does it mean to me personally? Well, as I explained in the article, one of the things that surprised me when I came across the National Federation of the Blind, now going on 24 years ago, was the idea that I could define what my future was. I just didn't know that was possible before that. I followed what I thought you were supposed to do and what I thought were the expectations for me as a blind person. I didn't even know I was a blind person at the time. I just thought I was someone who couldn't see so well. I had no concept that I could define my own future. I often describe this as I was really a passenger in my own life. I wasn't the driver. And the Federation has helped me and continues really to help me understand that I'm in control of defining my future. And yes, I can define that as very low expectations, and I could settle for that, but I'm inspired by others in the National Federation of the Blind to know that there's more to achieve, to know that there's more to enjoy, to know that there's more that I can do, and I can pick and choose from amongst those things to pursue the things that I want to be the best version of me. And our organization really continues to encourage us to do that. And more importantly, I can continue to build myself and not be bound by what the society around me expects me to be bound by. And especially in this day and age, what the society might value my participation at. That's a real discussion right now as significant issues of who lives and who doesn't based on the available health care is a real live concern in this nation today. But there's another important element of not just looking at live the life you want as an individual matter, which we do, but more importantly, in some ways, recognizing that live the life you want is about what we collectively determine it means. The influence that you have on me because of the work that you do and the things that you pursue helps to redefine for me what's possible for me. And when we work together, we get to define what the future looks like for blind people. In some ways, you could say live the life you want is a statement of our expression of the fact that we as blind people want to define what that future is, and we want to be an active part of making it come true. That's also embedded in Live the Life You Want. So I know as a longtime member of the Federation, that's what I think about, is not just the individual portion, but the influence we have on each other going forward. But there's a lot of ways to interpret words, and if you're a newly blind person who doesn't know what's possible, you certainly might interpret Live the Life You Want as settling for low expectations. What we want is for people to come to our organization and recognize that that's not what they have to do, that they can define it as something differently, and more important, that we're here to help. Those are the things I wanted to say to start it off. I'm very interested to know from all of you, what is your take on Live the Life You Want, and what does it mean to you as an individual, and what does it mean to you for our organization?
If you want to raise your hand with the *9 on the dial-in, under the More section on the app, and Alt-Y on the Windows, or JAWS, I believe, Windows computer. Chris Westbrook. Chris?
Hi, this is Chris Westbrook. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can hear you, yes.
Okay, cool. I'm on my laptop. Usually I'm on my phone, but anyway, I think what's great about Live the Life You Want, to me, it means doing the best you can with this, with the abilities that you have. The thing I like about Live the Life You Want is it doesn't necessarily impose a certain standard. You know, that life is going to be different for each person. You know, I am deafblind. You know, I have a cochlear implant, and I have another hearing aid, and I have some other mobility things going on. So for me, you know, that's going to look a little bit different than somebody, hopefully, who has, you know, 2 good ears and 2 good legs and just kind of zoom around. But I'm still able to get out, and I'm still able to, you know, travel around. I have a job. I work every day. You know, I bring home a paycheck. You know, control my food and all that stuff that we kind of take for granted. You know, live by myself. So I'm still living the life that I want. It's just going to look maybe a little bit different. You know, I might need a little bit of help with, you know, different things, but we still can live that life. And I think that's kind of a neat thing, as opposed to maybe some of our past messaging, which I thought might have been a little bit more, I don't want to say elitist because that's kind of a charged word, but something like that.
Thanks, Chris. I think that's an interesting point. That Live the Life You Want does not attempt to define what that means for individuals, although I think inherent in it is a nudge, and maybe not just a nudge, maybe sometimes a little harder push like we give at our training centers, to say to folks, you can do better than what you're doing. And here are some examples of other people who are prepared to help you do better than you're doing. That was what was and continues to be impressive to me. When I came to my first convention, there were people running circles around me. I had no idea about that I could do any of these things. And I was inspired to want to do them, even though I had no idea whether I could do what they were doing or get to that level. But I was inspired because not only did they say, here are the things we do, they said, we teach you how to do it. And that's, I think, a very important component of our tagline as well. Who else do we have?
We've got
Mr. President, this is Diane McGeorge. If I could
Hey,
just speak for a moment.
Diane.
Are you? I loved your
great.
presidential, that presidential release. That was tremendous. Anyway, you know, I thought I came to the NFB a long time ago, and I thought I was doing pretty darn good. You know, I had a family, and I was doing all kinds of activities in my community. And when I went to my very first convention, I saw, just as you had said, people doing things that were so far past what I thought I was doing. And I thought I was pretty hot stuff, you know. Well, I found out I could do so much more. I could just do so much more. And at that very convention, I saw people going all around doing everything. I had a guide dog, and I did fine with my dog. But I also knew there were times when I didn't need to use that dog. I didn't want to use that dog. And somebody said, well, here, you could do both. Let me show you how. Just give you a couple pointers on how to use your cane. And, you know, this is what is so terrific about our organization that you do not find in other organizations. And so from the first convention until now, this has shaped my entire life. And I think that can be done for everybody. Anyway, that's all I have, but it's just an organization that has changed me so dramatically. And I used the NFB principles when I started the Colorado Center a long time ago, and we've never wavered from that. And so if you're not in the NFB and you're on this call, for goodness sakes, call me or anybody, and we'll get you in touch.
Excellent. Thanks, Diane. And I'm proud I can say that I joined last century as well. So.
We've got
All right,
Tina
who else
Hansen.
do we have?
Tina Hansen. Tina?
All right.
Thank you. I would love to stay longer, but I'm expecting I've got another appointment to get to, so I'm looking forward to the archive call. But I think the idea of living the life you want is to be able to learn something new and then ask questions and find out what you can do to solve it. I struggle with it, but that's my ideal.
Yeah, and I think that's true for all of us, right? That we should all be striving to be better and to seek something better. Otherwise,
yes.
I mean, what you kind of wonder what you're living for if you're not striving to improve yourself.
Yeah, I think of a friend. I'll relate this real quickly. Just as an example, I think of a friend's horror story with a museum experience back in 2004. A friend went to a museum in our area, and she was really looking forward to going there, but everything was behind glass. So the only way for her to get anything out of it was to have a relative that was with her read every plaque to her. And, it was a sense of, I think I should have stayed home today. And that's not I can't rest because I'm thinking we've got to do something about it. I'm not sure how to start, but I'm thinking we've got to do something about this because I'm sure that what happened to my friend is not unique.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very good point that live the life you want is kind of, in many ways, a battle cry for us to look at the barriers that are in front of us and for us to devise the ways to get around them so that we can continue to do the things we want to do, even despite the artificial barriers that society puts in front of us. So what I'm wondering is, I know a number of people do have their hands raised, but I'm wondering if there is anybody that has a real problem with Live the Life You Want, that struggles with it as a motto or statement, and that would like to share that with us.
All right, phone number ending in 1892.
This is Debbie Brown from Maryland.
Hey, Debbie.
At first, I did have a problem with it. I said, live the life you want. Some bum wants to be on welfare their whole life, and they'll say, well, the NFB says I can live the life I want. So I didn't like it, but it is a part of the whole 1-minute message, and the next line is, blindness is not what holds you back. So that, to me, is the challenge. That if I'm screwing up and I'm ready today to throw my computer out the window, and, some of them are that I don't know how to use my screen reader, which, whatever that says about me is whatever it does. And okay, blindness is not what holds you back. So then you better go, and if something is holding you back, then you better go and deal with it, because blindness, the Federation says blindness is not what holds you back. So you've got to do and deal with if you think it is blindness. And that's what, if you can't do it yourself, then you got to do it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the interesting part of what you shared is that, that's the challenge for us, is finding blind individuals who have settled, and finding them fast enough and early enough where they still have enough hope that we can build upon to get them to know they don't have to settle. Now, obviously, as an organization, as a movement, we can't compel people to do things they don't want to do. I think one of the reasons that Live the Life You Want has resonated with a lot of people is because many of us do recognize that we continue to face barriers that prevent us from living the lives that we want. We want to have better full participation in society. We want to be better respected. And it's not blindness that holds us back, or it's not our own low expectations, it's those around us. And so Live the Life You Want becomes aspirational to deal with the rest of society. But it's finding people before they have completely given up on there being any hope of them being able to impact their own lives as well as others. Anybody else have some perspectives to share?
We have about 5 or 6 that had the hand up before anybody that had the issues. We have phone number ending in 4172.
Yes, I have to say that I think living the life you want is not just about blindness not limiting you, but it's also about making sure that you know exactly what you want to do, because there's a lot of people that are really confused, and one day they want to live one way and another day they want to live a different way. And so I think it's more about being determined and knowing how to pursue that dream or that goal or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and what is your name?
What
Okay.
was that?
What is your name?
Bianca.
Oh, Bianca. Okay. Thank you, Bianca. I think it's a very good point that sometimes it's not knowing even what the life is that you want to live. I know I didn't. I went to the University of Wisconsin. I pursued a degree in business. It was to some degree something I wanted to do, but it was more or equally as much that I thought it was something that I could reasonably do without having any real idea of what I could do as a blind person, or in my mind at that time, someone that couldn't see so well. So to say that I was pursuing or living the life that I wanted wasn't really true. I was kind of pursuing the one that I thought I could pursue. And so for me, when I came across the National Federation of the Blind, I went through this process of figuring out, well, what exactly do I want? And what do I want to do? And that's a real struggle. And I think we're blessed to have an organization that gives us a framework and support to do that as blind people, because that's something that a lot of people struggle with, and not just blind people. Figuring that out and figuring out how to get the support and resources to pursue the things you want to do in life, that's a challenge. So I think the determination piece is really important. Who else do we have?
We have Eileen, Sweet G.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, President Riccobono, for taking the time out for us. It is such an honor to have an opportunity to tell you personally what I think about Live the Life You Want. And I'm Eileen Gallegos. So
thanks for being here.
Absolutely. And so for me, I was kind of told as a person, as a child, like you're gonna live the life you want. And the blindness part was never really
Hello.
Do we lose Eileen?
I guess so. It shows that she's still on. All right, we'll jump to another one and see if she comes back.
Sorry, Eileen.
Marianne.
Thanks so much. I am Marianne Migliorelli from here in Colorado. When I think of Live the Life I Want, I remember about 6 years ago, I gave a speech to our convention, and I said to people, do you dream? And not the kind of dreams that you have when you're asleep, but the kind that when you're awake and you can control what you're dreaming about, you can really get involved in those dreams. And for me, living the life I want means being free to dream, being free to adjust those dreams as are needed, or to be able to realize that something that you were dreaming about might not be exactly what you want, but still go after it in the way that then becomes what you need. And for me, living the life I want is the freedom to make choices to enjoy your dreams. I don't know anybody, and believe me, I've known an awful lot of poor people, folks on welfare and whatever. I don't know anybody who dreams of a life on welfare. That's a life of settling for something, and you make that choice to do it if you want to, need to, whatever. But for me, it's about dreams and making a choice to embody your dreams and figure out what that is going to mean for the world. I think the same thing goes for our organization. We dreamed about driving a car. We figured out how to make that reality. We dreamed about teaching kids STEM subjects and trying to level the playing field for blind kids. We've made that reality. There's lots of dreams that we have as an organization, and living the life we want in the Federation way is being able to see those dreams become reality and making the choices to either embrace that dream and do something with it, or to cast it aside and not have our dreams be dictated to us. When I was a kid, I was told, you can't have a career in music. You can't have a career on the stage. You'll never get paid. Voc Rehab is never going to sponsor that as an employment goal, so you can't have it. You need a different kind of goal. You need a different dream. Adjust your reality to what we decide your life will be. Now, the life that they envisioned for me and that I bought their dream years ago, isn't the life I live now. A lot of the things I do now are because I wasn't scared to dream anymore and wasn't scared to live anymore. And I don't believe our organization is either. So for me, that is what living the life we want really is all about.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. I think that the choice aspect is really important. It can't be emphasized enough. In fact, I wrote a whole speech about it last summer. I think that living the life you want is very much about continuing to open up choices to us as blind people. We know that there are certain choices that just aren't real for us today because we don't have full access to all of the information and services that everyone else has. And so we have to sometimes make compromises just to get done the normal things that we want to get done in a day like everybody else. But the more choices we can open up to blind people, the more barriers we knock down. Enables us with choices, some of which we'll take and some we won't. Sometimes they're about knowing what's possible, but sometimes they're just about eliminating the barriers, the artificial barriers that we face. And so choice, I think, definitely is inherent in live the life you want. Great point. Who else do we have?
Maureen.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, hi. Thank you, Mr.
Hello.
President, for being with us tonight. It is a great honor. And for me, you know, when I lost my sight, I didn't want to be blind, and that made me not really want anything else because I was afraid to want things. And it was through, you know, my training at the Colorado Center for the Blind and being a member of the National Federation of the Blind, joining in 2009, that really gave me the confidence to understand that things happen in our lives that we don't want, but then we can really still do, you know, make the best out of everything. You know, I don't want to have 35 surgeries, but I am an active participant in my healthcare. I make the decisions around that. That's something I want to do. You know, David and I wanted to start a family and we didn't think that we could. And I thought, you know, well, no, it doesn't, that's okay. We'll adopt. You know, I would have never thought that I could adopt a kid. We were and ended up being blessed with a child, but still I was able to have that dream and have that want. And that's something I never would have been able to have without the philosophy of the National Federation of the Blind.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. Who else do we have?
We've got the Jim Gashel. Jim?
The capital T. A capital T. The Jim Gashel.
Oh yeah, Jim Gashel here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I certainly agree with everything that's been said. It's interesting. Live the life you want is you can bring to that phrase just about anything that is, you know, your particular understanding. The thing that I find particularly important about it is that we use that phrase in conjunction with the name of our organization and our whole branding. And so that brings up for me the collective challenge of live the life you want. And so I understand that phrase as saying, as an organizational body, that it is our mission, our challenge, to do the things that make it possible for blind people to live the life they want. And this is an enormous challenge because the goals and aspirations of blind people are as broad as you can imagine. And so in saying live the life you want, our organization is taking on a huge responsibility to pave the way so that blind people today and blind people in the future will be able to dream and fulfill those dreams to the extent that they want to do so.
Yeah, great point. Great point. Yeah, yeah, it's very aspirational in that, you know, it really is making commitment to take on all of those challenges and to tackle all of those aspects. I think you see it in our organization with our efforts to really be intentional about being diverse and inclusive, and that raises a lot of questions that we just don't know how to answer yet. How do we reach blind people we haven't reached, and how do we reach blind people that might be in communities and circles that just aren't reflected in our current membership? How do we get them to be part of the collective of the life that we collectively want to live as blind people? It brings up some real challenges, but of course, all of those challenges are also opportunities. All right, I know we got other people waiting.
Phone number ending in 5038.
This is Pat Gormley out here in Frostburg, Mark. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And one of the things that I come from the perspective, I've done very well educationally, but whenever I tried to get employed, I just hit damn roadblock. I don't give it, I just hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And I'm 68 now. I don't know if, living the life you want means that you have enough to take care of your house and do things financially, which I don't quite do, because social insecurity is just that. If God forbid anything were to happen to that, I think I'd be in a real up the creek without a paddle, if you will. And I don't know if it's going to be something I'll be able to accomplish at my age, but one thing I am going to do in that realm is in the fall, I'm going to get for the first time involved in a political campaign. I don't care, because that's my right as a citizen. I can do that. And I hope the problem we have up here in Western Maryland is that they assume the only place that blind people can work is blind industries. And I took a tour of the place up here in Cumberland, and I just decided with my background and my experience, it'd be like trying to fit a round peg in a square hole. It wouldn't work. But you couldn't convince the rehab counselor because he didn't think a person with a master's could do anything else. And I finally just said to the point where I've got to the point where I'm going to create my own damn job if I have to. Heck with that noise. But being in the NFB, I've been in the NFB now, it'll be 46 years. I came in 1975 under the auspices of the late John McCraw and Joyce Stewart. And I came after the discussion about coalitions. And I favored and that's what drew me in. Plus, the 1994 convention in Detroit, I will never, never forget. That was when Justin Butterbob passed away, and we had to I've never seen an organization operate in so much love. And then, of course, in 2015, when I lost Tina and I were married because of our involvement in the Federation. I hope and pray that God, the Lord, bring me a new mate, because that's something that, my daughter doesn't want me to get married, but I said, I do want to do it, and you're not standing in my way, Andrea.
There you
You'll
go.
be out of the house,
So,
hopefully,
Pat,
before that happens. Yes,
so,
go ahead.
Pat, you bring up a great point. I know we got about 10 other people with their hands raised, but you bring up a great point, which is I think that when we say National Federal Line, live the life you want, it also has the promise that we make to the next generation coming behind us. I think we all recognize that had we known the Federation earlier, had we been farther along on our march to freedom, things would be very much different in our own lives. And obviously, for each of us, we have to try to achieve as much as we can. But I can tell you, for me, I didn't learn Braille or start to learn Braille till I was 20 years old. And the Federation had meaning for me when I found it. That's when I started to learn Braille, was when I found the Federation and learned why it was important. But it really didn't have even as much meaning for me until 14 years later, when I was in the hospital with my wife, Melissa, and our daughter, Oriana, was born, and they said that they wanted us to take her to a pediatric ophthalmologist because her eyes didn't respond as expected. And I had been working on the education of blind children in education programs for about a decade by that point. And it hit me that there was no way that she was going to be 20 before she was going to get the skills that I started getting at 20, that I should have had starting when I was 3 years old and developing when I was 3 years old. It's that live the life you want is also the promise we make to the next generation, going better for them. And what we hope, of course, is that they'll catch that fire and leave it better for the folks behind them. And I think that's the like what I like to call the bond of faith that we've always had in this movement. It's why we're successful. It's why young people come to be part of our organization and redefine, by the way, what live the life you want means. Okay, I want to make sure we can get some of these other folks in the last 10 minutes we have here.
All right, Jess.
So I'll be really quick, but I just have to say that when I first came into the organization, the thing that really struck me is that I found a group of people who believed in me, not because they knew me or knew anything about me, but because they believed that blind people could. And so when I hear live the life you want, it makes me want to try harder, because there is a group of people that believe in me, and they count on me and on all of us to live the lives that we want. And so it pushes me to do my best to live up to that.
Yeah, great perspective.
All right. We've got Tracy Jones.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
We can hear you.
Hi, I wanted to just say there's a phenomenon called the why try effect, and that affects people who are labeled and stigmatized by society, and then they turn around and self-stigmatize them. And it's something I'm studying in school right now, and it's what I'm doing my dissertation on. And what I want to do is try to find ways that people can overcome that and overcome the stigma and live the life they want to live, and increase their self-efficacy and their self-confidence. And it's something I'm learning through Federation, to get away from stigmatizing society and to stop self-stigmatizing. And the Federation has helped me, because when I first became blind, I just wanted to lay on the couch and not do anything. And then something sparked within me, and I got off the couch and I went to school I'm an old student. I'm 47 years old, and I'm in school with a bunch of younger people. But that's okay. It doesn't matter my age. I'm still learning, and that's what's important. And I live the life I want to live despite my disabilities, and it's something that is reinforced by the Federation. And I want to thank everybody for being there for me and for us and for you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Great comments. And I think we could spend a whole session just talking about how so often, based on what society tells us, we learn to settle for that as normal. And I think what we've done in the National Federation of the Blind with the Live the Life You Want mentality is help to teach each other that normal is the standard that we set and the bar that we raise, and we don't have to settle for what society thinks we're limited to. So great point.
Kevin.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, President Riccobono and the production team here, Kevin Kovacs, Jessica Beecham, Maureen Neatfeld. A couple of things. Tracy, thank you for that comment. I've never heard it put that way, but when you talk about why try, very easy, boy, it's easy to understand and empathize with that, because you got to set people up for success, and we certainly do. Live the life you want, to me, is freeing. I find it very freeing, because if I want to be a sculptor and live in a treehouse, that's cool with the National Federation of the Blind, as long as that's the best version of myself. If I want to be a Randolph Shepherd vendor, that's cool with with my buddies, with my family. And I think it's a very freeing thing for me. The only other thing I wanted to say is I love this session and I love our Philosophy Fridays. In my view, I'm connecting with people now in a way that we should be connecting at chapter meetings, and we don't often do that or don't always do that. So I think this is a wonderful, almost a role modeling experience for us, so that when we are back in person, we'll know that it's really about touching one another, socially, physically isolated, either way. And thank you, President Riccobono, for leading that effort. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that. And all weekend, I'll be thinking about you as a sculpture in a treehouse.
Phone number 1625.
Hi, this is Judy Sanders from Minnesota, a long time ago from Colorado. And I want to say something to people who might be on this call who aren't saying anything and maybe are not a part of the NFB. And I think sometimes some of us think, I can't live up to the things that they do. They're the amazing blind people. And I figured out a long time ago that unfortunately, I'm not amazing, but I decided it was okay, and that we all have strengths that sometimes we might not learn about, and sometimes it takes a lot of courage to take the first step to get involved, but then it gets a lot easier. That's it.
Yeah, it's a great point. You know, so often blind people get held out as, you know, you're exceptional because you're not like other blind people. And that's not what we're trying to convey in our organization. We sincerely want Live the Life You Want to be something that everybody can own and shape and be part of. And I know for me, when I came across the Federation, I had no idea how I would do things that people were doing, and how I would travel with the confidence that they did. But it was only because people showed me grace and love, and some tough pushing to get me to understand that I could do those same things. But the first and most important thing was I had to want it. I had to want to go after that. If I didn't want to be a skilled traveler, it was going to be very hard for me to get there to do it. And it was going to take work. like any good thing does. If you want to be a good Braille reader, you got to read Braille. You just can't pick it up one day and start reading it. Like anything else you want to do in life. And I think that it's a very important point. And it's important for us also to remember what it is like to come to this idea for the first time. It's scary, it's intimidating, and I think that's what calls upon us. It's embedded in our brand to be welcoming and understanding, because when folks first come across this idea of live the life you want, if they have no idea how a blind person lives at all, it's pretty scary. And they have to work through that. And I think it's our job to help them work through that. And I'm fortunate that when I came across this organization, that's what I was met with, and that allowed me to work through that process and own it. So I know it's 7:58, or at least in Eastern time, so we probably have time for one or two other folks, unless we don't want to run over the hour. I'll leave it to our host to decide.
Okay. We've got, let's see, Nancy or Macy McLean. Well, it's not letting me. There you go, Macy.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. First off, President Riccobono, great presidential report yesterday. It was really cool. I really appreciate the Zoom aspect. I love Zoom. It's a great app, and I think it was really cool to just connect amidst all this crazy pandemic stuff happening. So for me personally, personally live the life you want for me is about independence and making choices. I think my favorite speech is The Nature of Independence by Dr. Jernigan, and he always talks about getting the information and going where you want and when you want with like inconvenience to yourself or to other people. And I think that's great. And I think for me as a college kid, it's really easy for me to try to maybe limit myself or just have people serve me. And especially like going to a Christian university, it's really hard for me to have people serve me and like not think that I can't do something because I am blind. And so I kind of get the you're exceptional, you're inspirational when I'm really not. And so that's really hard for me. And I think that's why I like the NFB so much, is because I go to a convention and I see all these people and they're my friends, like even people that I've never even met. And like, they're just people I can just bounce questions off of. Hey, how do you do this? How do you grill this? How do you whatever, just anything that I've never even tried before. And it's the norm to be around conventions rather than the exception. And I think that's the one thing I'm kind of worried about going out into the world of Christian people with my degree and just trying to figure out how best to do things. So personally, just making choices and then just living the life I want and asking questions and just knowing that the Federation has my back and they're my family and they're great people and they're my friends. So love you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And great point. You always can come back to the Federation for that shot in the arm, or that grounding in what really is reality. And I think especially at a time like this, as has been pointed out in this meeting already, really critical that we have this network we can call upon.
So we can do one more chorus and then we'll.
Hello,
Chorus?
can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
One of the things that I found that I really like about the motto that the NFB has is that being new to blindness is that at first I looked at the motto and it kind of scared me. It seemed so huge in my eyes. It was like, live the life you want. I'm like, where am I supposed to be with that? When I first started meeting people from the NFB, so many of the people seemed so confident, almost larger than life to me. And it almost scared me at first because they seemed so sure of themselves. And then as I went through my training or at CCB, I spent some time sitting down and kind of thinking about that. And I started to kind of realize that the motto is really fluid, and that where I want to be right now doesn't have to be where I want to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And that when I'm wanting to be somewhere, I can like live the life I want to live right now, and that can be different from the life I want to live later. So it's really a very fluid concept, and it can change. And that really helped me to kind of focus on things really one thing at a time, and not to feel so intimidated by it. And that's one of the things that I really found that I love about the NFB's motto. And I really like that about it.
Yeah, it's a great point. Thank you for making it, and a great point to end on. You know, I suspect if we could turn back time, and if we were able to ask our very earliest leaders, the Jacobus Tenbrook and others, what does live the life you want mean as a blind person? I think we would maybe be a little embarrassed by what Dr. Tenbrook would have said. Now, I certainly think he would have said something far more visionary than what anybody else would have said in 1940. But, you know, the beauty of it, and I agree with this concept that it's fluid, is that we have continued to raise the standard over the last 80 years for what live the life you want means for blind people. You know, when I started voting in elections back in the 1990s, you know, the notion of what a secret, independent, verifiable ballot was for me is completely different than what I expect when I show up at the polls today. And that's because we've helped to change that standard. Collectively, we've helped to raise that expectation in society. And so I think, you know, what will really be the death of our organization is if we fail to actually make live the life you want and the work that we're doing fluid. If we fail to keep raising the standard, and a time like this is when it's going to be tested the most, if we fail to keep raising that standard, that's when we will not fulfill what we want to do as a people, as an organization, and as individuals. So thank you to each and every one of you on this call that are contributing to us pursuing that mission and that motto with vigor, live the life you want. And I would close by inviting each and every one of you who are not members to join us. We need your help in continuing to raise those expectations and continuing to march to the future. So thank you, NFB of Colorado, for the invite. Always happy to be with you, and look forward to the next set of meetings that we can be together in.
Well, thank you so much.
Much, President Riccobono. I have to say, I'm here with my guide dog Prada, and she says live the life you want means play with all the toys during Zoom calls. That's her favorite.
That's right.
But thanks everyone for being here. Please remember, we do have these calls at 5 o'clock every day. The login information is always the same. We do invite you to become members. We do invite you to engage with us. If you were one of the people, I know there were a few more hands that were raised than we had time for on this call. So if you are one of those people, but you still want to share your thoughts on what it means to live the life you want, you should email those to KUVAN@nfbco.org. That's KUVAN@nfbco.org, because we're always looking for great information to put into our Blind Coloradan blog. And I'm going to let Diane close us out.
I'm sorry, I did not get that. What did you say, Jessica?
Oh, I just said you can tell everybody you can close us out for the day.
Okay. Well, it was just wonderful, this whole Zoom call. I don't do real well with it, but Jessica came to my rescue, as she has done many times, and I thank you for that. So let's keep getting together, and let's keep the faith. And everybody keep on living the life you want.
All right. Well, thanks everybody and have a great
Thank
night.
you, Jess. Bye-bye.
Good night, y'all.
everyone.
Good night.
Live the life you want.
Bye.
Nobody can
Thank you.
stop you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.